The Great Hack. The breach goes even further, revealing how digital technology is always monitoring and controlling our lives. And it gets to the heart of how some big tech corporations' entire economic model may be endangering our human rights. How does Meta connect to any of this? If you're already curious and sold on seeing precisely what the heck happened right under our nose, stay tuned. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will unveil the greatest hack of privacy. Before we get into the video, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure that the post notifications are turned on so that you never miss a video from us. Without further ado, let's dive in. It's easy to forget that when the Cambridge Analytica story first broke a year ago, Mark Zuckerberg's initial response was a long and deafening silence. For the founder and CEO of Facebook, it took 5 days to address the public from his Menlo Park cloisters, the guy who has complete control over the world's largest communications platform. When he did so with zeal, launching a fresh set of talking points across the country, from his own Facebook page to the mainstream press to Congress, and then onto a bizarrely sincere debate series he's planned to broadcast at irregular intervals for the rest of the year. We have a responsibility to protect your data, and if we can't, then we don't deserve to serve you. The pinnacle of all that eloquence came earlier when Zuck unleashed a 3,000-word rant on Facebook's privacy-focused future, a phrase that requires both standard quotation marks and ironic scare quotes. Emily Bell of The Guardian aptly described the message as the nightmarish college application essay of an unaccomplished sociopath. The so-called privacy pivot is the inevitable conclusion to Facebook's earth-shaking and market-moving response to the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which threw the company into the worst crisis in its 14-year history. And it's worth remembering those 5 days of silence when the contours of the scandal began to take shape and presented themselves with an uncanny distinction. The Cambridge Analytica narrative revealed nothing new when it came to Facebook. Facebook has allowed someone to extract vast amounts of private information about large numbers of people from its system. That entity had then passed the data on to someone else, who had then used it for political purposes. What changed was our perspective on those facts. It was as if we'd all gone on a long journey and came home with an unsettling feeling that something had changed, and we didn't recognize that what had changed was us, not the rooms and furniture that surrounded us. For much of the first 24 hours after the story broke, Facebook's PR machine was involved in a pedantic and self-defeating debate over whether or not what had happened constituted a data breach. Facebook was accurate in claiming that what happened was not a data breach according to information security standards. No systems were accessed and no passwords or important bits of information were taken or compromised, reps wrote. However, a year later, in the wake of an actual massive data breach in October, it is clear that a data leak would have been simpler for Facebook's image to weather. At this time, almost every corporation has had a major data leak. Only Facebook has had to face such an existential crisis. That's because, in the case of Cambridge Analytica, it wasn't a case of Facebook's systems being hacked, but of Facebook's systems working as intended. Data was gathered, extracted, and exploited. Zuck unveiled a new talking point towards the end of 2018, claiming that Facebook has fundamentally transformed its DNA in the aftermath of the 2016 presidential election and the Cambridge Analytica debacle. It's unclear whether Zuckerberg truly thinks this, but it's evident that few people outside of Facebook do. While it appears that Facebook is suddenly woke to privacy issues, it's safe to assume it's business as usual there, said Ashkan Soltani, a former FTC top technologist. Barrett mentioned Facebook's insistence on exploiting phone numbers that users provided for security reasons or non-security purposes as an especially egregious illustration of this attitude. After the Cambridge Analytica story emerged, Zuckerberg made a number of explicit promises. On March 19, 2018, Facebook said that it was conducting a forensic audit of Cambridge Analytica and other companies implicated in the data exploitation, but it later withdrew after the Information Commissioner's Office, ICO, of the United Kingdom launched its own inquiry. On March 13th, a Facebook representative said the firm was still waiting for authorization from the ICO to conduct such an audit. On March 21st, 2018, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced that the company would look into any apps that had access to large amounts of information through the platform prior to 2014, audit any app with questionable behavior, and prohibit any developer who mishandled personally identifiable information. Facebook published continuous updates on the inquiry until August 22, 2018, when it announced in a blog post that it had investigated thousands of third-party apps and suspended more than 400 of them. 7 months later, a representative claimed the inquiry was still ongoing, but gave the same figures. Thousands of people were investigated and over 400 were blacklisted. On May 1st, Facebook announced its most ambitious promise, the launch of a clear history tool that would allow users to order Facebook to remove all of the data it collects about them when they surf the web. Facebook stated at the time that the tool would take a few months to build. It's been more than a few months, as BuzzFeed News pointed out. A Facebook spokesperson declined to give a specific date for when the tool may be accessible, stating that it was taking time to perfect the feature. The tilt to privacy is the other big promise. The actual mechanics of this strategy are far more ordinary than Zuckerberg's manifesto would have us believe and entail far less true privacy. The CEO intends to merge his company's 3 messaging systems, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger, into a single platform with end-to-end encryption. The general agreement among privacy experts is that this proposal is more concerned with protecting market share than with protecting privacy. They are really skilled at strategically leveraging privacy as a rationale for an anti-competitive approach, and the charge to encrypted texting or delete history makes sense when you consider the impending legislative demands around interoperability and data portability, Soltani added. The most visible of these impending pressures is the growing popularity of pursuing antitrust action against Facebook, a notion that has quickly moved from the periphery of think tanks to the core of a key 2020 Democratic presidential candidate's agenda. It was unthinkable just 2 years ago that "Break up Big Tech" would become a 2020 campaign slogan. Let's not forget that Zuckerberg spent much of 2017 dressing up as a politician and going on his own whistle-stop tour across the country. Nonetheless, here we are. Although the Cambridge Analytica revelations did not affect Facebook, they did affect us. Our eyes have finally opened. The question is, what we will do. What are the implications of the Cambridge Analytica scandal for consumers, businesses, and governments? Consumers must understand the value of their data. Consumers should become more informed about how firms, particularly those that provide free services like Facebook and Google, use their personal data to fuel their operations. Consumers should read privacy disclosures and use the in-product user controls provided by the majority of IT companies. People should exercise their rights to request that a corporation allows them to see, edit, and remove their personal data, because consumers, not companies, own their data. Consumers should register complaints with the FTC or other competent regulatory organizations when corporations engage in fraudulent or deceptive data processing methods. Ultimately, customers should demand more openness and restrictions from businesses, as well as more privacy protection from their political authorities. Companies that process personal data electronically, which now includes almost every organization on the planet, must learn to better balance privacy risks with privacy measures. More user restrictions are required the riskier the data use. The more sensitive the information, the more safeguards should be implemented. Explicit content, reader-friendly, visible privacy notifications, and privacy-friendly default settings are examples of controls. By putting themselves in their customers' shoes, business leaders should do more than merely follow the letter of the law. When customers send over their data, how do they expect it to be used? Is consent given? Is it actually unambiguous, specific, informed, and willingly given? Furthermore, as Facebook discovered the hard way, bad actors will always exist. When exchanging data with other parties, firms should go the extra mile and invest in independent audits to guarantee that those companies are meeting with the company's privacy obligations. It was unthinkable just 2 years ago that "Break up Big Tech" would become a 2020 campaign slogan. Let's not forget that Zuckerberg spent much of 2017 dressing up as a politician and going on his own whistle-stop tour across the country. It is past time for the US Congress to muster the political will to enact similar privacy protections for US customers so that everyone may benefit from the opportunities offered by the digital economy of the 21st century. Did you find this video informative or helpful? Let us know in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos. Don't forget to like and share.